Okay, hello everybody. I hope you enjoyed last week's story. And so this week's is Icarus and Daedalus. And so I'm going to click on this little background information and give you a little bit to go along with it. It talks about ancient Greece, and stories were about gods and goddesses and heroes and monsters. And these myths explained everything from death to weather. And it kind of gave people a chance to learn a little bit more about the world. And so let's talk about the author of this particular one. This is Josephine Preston Peabody. She was an American poet and dramatist. She was born in Brooklyn, New York. Peabody was educated at the Girls Latin School, Boston, and at Radcliffe College. And her first published work was a poem that appeared in the Women's Journal in 1888 when she was 14 years old, which is pretty close to the age that most of you are. So she went on to write verse dramas and poems to wide critical acclaim. So that's our poet. And let's talk about the vocabulary words that we're going to have in this particular story. The first one here is imprisoned, which means kept in prison or to be in prison. The next word we have is liberty, which is the state of being free or freedom. And the last word we have is captive, which means to be taken prisoner or confined. So those are your three vocabulary words that go along with this story. And so I hope you enjoy it. Among all those mortals who grew so wise that they learned the secrets of the gods, none was more cunning than Daedalus. He once built for King Minos of Crete a wonderful labyrinth of winding ways so cunningly tangled up and twisted around that once inside you could never find your way out again without a magic clue. But the king's favor veered with the wind, and one day he had his master architect imprisoned in a tower. Daedalus managed to escape from his cell, but it seemed impossible to leave the island, since every ship that came or went was well guarded by order of the king. At length, watching the seagulls in the air, the only creatures that were sure of liberty, he thought of a plan for himself and his young son Icarus, who was captive with him. Little by little, he gathered a store of feathers, great and small. He fastened these together with thread, molded them in with wax, and so fashioned two great wings like those of a bird. When they were done, Daedalus fitted them to his own shoulders, and after one or two efforts, he found that by waving his arms, he could winnow the air and cleave it as a swimmer does the sea. He held himself aloft, wavered his way, and that way with the wind, and at last, like a great fledgling, he learned to fly. Without delay, he fell to work on a pair of wings for the boy Icarus and taught him carefully how to use them, bidding him beware of rash adventures among the stars. "Remember," said the father, "never to fly very low or very high, for the fogs about the earth could weigh you down, but the blaze of the sun will surely melt your feathers apart if you go too near." For Icarus, these cautions went in one ear and out the other. Who could remember to be careful when he was to fly for the first time? Are birds careful? Not they, and not an idea remained in the boy's head but the one joy of escape. The day came, and the fair wind that was set to them free. The father bird put on his wings, and while the light urged them to be gone, he waited to see all that was well with Icarus, for the two could not fly hand in hand. Up they rose, the boy after his father. The hateful ground of Crete sank beneath them, and the country folk, who caught a glimpse of them when they were high above the treetops, took it for a vision of the gods, Apollo, perhaps with Cupid after him. At first, there was a terror in the joy. The wide vacancy of the air dazed them. A glance downward made their brains reel. But when a great wind filled their wings, and Icarus felt himself sustained like a halcyon bird in the hollow of a wave, like a child uplifted by his mother, he forgot everything in the world but joy. He forgot Crete and the other islands that had passed over. He saw but vaguely that winged thing in the distance before him. That was his father Daedalus. He longed for one draught of flight to quench the thirst of his captivity. He stretched out his arms to the sky and made towards the highest heavens. Alas for him! Warmer and warmer grew the air. Those arms that had seemed to hold him relaxed. His wings wavered and drooped. He fluttered his young hands vainly. He was falling, and in that terror he remembered. The heat of the sun had melted the wax from his wings. The feathers were falling one by one like snowflakes, and there was none to help. He fell like a leaf tossed down the wind, down, down, with one cry that overtook Daedalus far away. When he returned and sought high and low for the poor boy, he saw nothing but the bird-like feathers afloat on the water, and he knew that Icarus was drowned. The nearest island he named Icaria, in memory of the child. But he, in heavy grief, went to the temple of Apollo in Sicily, and there hung up his wings as an offering. Never again did he attempt to fly. So I hope you enjoyed this myth. I think there's going to be questions to follow, and maybe get to see you soon. Bye.